Hey everybody, today we are talking about sex linkage in biology. So we've talked a little bit about this so far in humans, and so you guys are aware of the system known for mammals, which is XY being male and then XX being female. So that one you guys have seen before. There are a few other systems that we're going to take a look at. So we'll look at diploid insects, birds, and then social insects as well. So what we are looking at here, I know I'm covering a little bit of it. So here we have insects. So if you are female, then you have XX. If you are male, then you just have one X. Here in birds, if you are female, you are ZW. So in this case, you have, if you're female, you have the two different sex chromosomes, whereas if you are a male, then you are ZZ. And then we also have the haploid diploid system or haplodiploid system, in which case if you have 32, then you are female. And I know I'm kind of blocking this guy over here, but then if you're haploid, you are male. So we're going to focus mostly on chromosomal basis of sex in humans for a little bit. So that X chromosome is a medium-sized chromosome and it has a large number of traits. We've talked about that in class. And then the Y chromosome is much smaller and it only has a few traits. Here is a view of the X compared to the Y chromosome. So you can see the X is quite a bit larger. And here is a diagram that just sort of depicts the XY system. So you have the parents, so you've got the 44 total chromosomes and then XY in a male. And so when sperm is made, you will have half of them that have 22 chromosomes and an X, and half that have 22 chromosomes and a Y. With the female, you are going to make all of your egg cells will have 22 chromosomes and then an X chromosome. And so then you will have your zygotes, which will either be, again, female with XX or male with XY. So the X and Y chromosomes are a homologous pair, but only for a small region at one tip of the chromosome. So here we have a karyotype. You can tell this is female because it's got two X chromosomes. So in this case, you've got chromosomes 1 through 22 paired up with their homologous pairs, and then the two X's are going to pair together since they are a homologous pair. And then in the male, so you can tell this is a male because you have an X and a Y, these two will count as a homologous pair because one tip will pair up. So the SRY is the sex determining region on the Y chromosome gene. So if this gene is present, then you have a male. If the gene is absent, then it's a female. So SRY codes for a cell surface receptor, and again, this is the sex determining region Y chromosome gene, so it's found on the Y chromosome. Sex linkage is when you have inheritance of traits that are found on the sex chromosomes. And so X linkage is very common. Y linkage is very rare if it exists at all. Males are considered hemizygous, meaning they only have one copy of the X chromosome, and so because of that, they are going to show all the traits on the X chromosome that they have, whether or not they're dominant or recessive. And so that's why it's more likely for males to show X recessive gene problems than females. So because females have that second X chromosome, if they receive one recessive copy that has that codes for a disorder, they could also potentially have one dominant copy, which would sort of be the phenotype that you see then. So some fairly common X-linked disorders that you tend to see more in males than females would be color blindness. We talk about this a lot in class because you guys know I've got two colorblind brothers. Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, hemophilia, and then some immune system defects. So what this diagram here is showing you guys is samples of X-linked patterns. And so here you have a female who is homozygous dominant, a male who is recessive. And so when this egg and sperm join together, you have two possible genotypes. You're either going to get a female who is heterozygous for the trait, or you will get a male who is completely unaffected because he's going to get an X with a dominant A from his mother, and then he gets the Y from his father. If you have a heterozygous mother and a dominant father, you have a little bit more variety here. So you could end up with a female who is heterozygous, like her mother, or a female who is homozygous dominant. You could also end up with a male who is unaffected, who gets the dominant allele from his mother, or a male who has the trait, so let's say it's color blindness, because his mother was heterozygous, he got the recessive allele from his mother and then the Y from his father. Here again we are looking at the heterozygous female and we're looking at a recessive male, and so we have a few options. You could have a male that has the disorder or does not. You can have the female who is a carrier, meaning she's got the recessive allele, however she also has a dominant allele, or in this case you can see the recessive phenotype in the female because she could inherit both the recessive alleles from both of her parents. So X-linked patterns. The trait is usually passed from a carrier mother to about half of her sons. An affected father has no affected children, but will pass on the trait to all of his daughters who will be carriers for the trait. So again, we've talked about this in class. I'm going to have a niece in a few months who is going to be a carrier for color blindness because my little brother is colorblind. Watch how questions are phrased when you come across these sex linkage questions. So sometimes they'll say, what's the chance of having a child with this disorder? That is very different than saying what is the chance of having a male or having a female with this disorder. So make sure you watch the wording of questions. I don't ever want to trick you guys. You just have to make sure you read the questions carefully. So can females be colorblind? Again, we've talked about this a bunch in class. And if their mother was a carrier and their father was affected, then yes, a female could be colorblind, but she has to be able to inherit the traits from both parents. So now we have sex-limited traits, and these are traits that are only expressed in one sex. And then we have sex-influenced traits, and these are traits whose expression differs because of the hormones of the sex. So these are not on the sex chromosome, however, they are influenced by hormones of the specific gender. So examples could be beards, mammary gland development, and baldness. So baldness is a common one. If testosterone is present, then the trait acts as dominant. If there is not testosterone, then the trait can act as recessive. So males have a lot of testosterone, so if they have the gene, they tend to go bald. So baldness you'll see baldness in that phenotype. Females, however, though, have to be homozygous in order to have thin hair because it's recessive. So they would have to have both of the alleles. We're going to talk quickly about what happens to the extra X chromosome in females. And so I don't know if you guys have come across the term bar body in your reading yet, but it is an inactive X chromosome that's observed in the nucleus. This is actually a way of determining genetic sex without doing a karyotype, because you can actually usually see the bar body in the nucleus. And so it's going to be an indication that one X has been inactivated. Meaning there are two X's present, so it has to be female that you're looking at. So the Lion hypothesis says that which X is inactivated is random, and that inactivation happens in pretty early embryo development by adding methyl groups to DNA. And so the result is that body cells are a mosaic of X types. So it's not always going to be the same X chromosome that is turned off. So one good example is calico cats. And so with calico cats, X with a capital B is for black fur. So fur color is going to be X-linked, and then X with an O is going to be for orange fur. So a calico cat is heterozygous, meaning it's got XB and XO. An orange cat would be XOXO. A black-furred cat would be XB. And then think about what a male would look like then in terms of fur color. So if it were black, it would be XBY. If it were orange, it would be XOY. And then again, calico cats are heterozygous. And so what that means is that within the cat, so here's a picture of a calico cat, so it's a mix of orange and black fur, you end up having areas where the cat looks black, and that means that the X that was carrying the allele for orange was turned off, and then on the patches where you see orange, that is where you have the X with the black allele being inactivated. All right, so that's why you end up seeing a mix of this fur together. So your lecture question today is, why don't you find many male calico cats? So think about what you know about now X inactivation, but also what you know about mammal sex linkage, and make sure you send me an answer on the website, and I look forward to reading them. Thanks, guys.